สวัสดีค่ะพบกับพวกเราทีมงานนิทรรศการสื่อการสอนใหม่อีกเช่นเคยนะคะกับกิจกรรมออนไลน์เวิร์กช็อปอะคาเดมี่สำหรับปีนี้นะคะเรายังมีกิจกรรมดีๆอีกมากมายไม่ว่าจะเป็นทั้งทางด้านวิชาการดิจิทัลเลิร์นนิ่งและเวิร์กช็อปต่างๆโดยวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิจากสถาบันการศึกษาชั้นนำไม่ว่าจะเป็นทั้งในประเทศและต่างประเทศมีทั้งแบบออนไลน์และเจอกันแบบตัวจริงเสียงจริงอีกด้วยค่ะ
หากไม่อยากจะพลาดกิจกรรมดีๆแบบนี้นะคะสามารถรับชมรายละเอียดเพิ่มเติมได้ที่ www.worlddidacasia.com ค่ะหรือที่ Facebook Fanpage นะคะ Worlddidac Asia ค่ะรวมถึงการสมัครสมาชิกนะคะเพื่อเป็นส่วนหนึ่งกับเราค่ะกับ Asia Educator Club นะคะโดยท่านนะคะสามารถสมัครสมาชิกเพื่อเข้าร่วมกิจกรรมดีๆตลอดทั้งปี 2564 ได้นะคะโดยรายละเอียดการสมัครสมาชิกสามารถรับชมได้ระหว่างรายการนะคะโดยจะมีตัววิ่งด้านล่างค่ะ
สำหรับงานนิทรรศการสื่อการสอนใหม่ Worlddidac Asia ปีนี้นะคะจะจัดขึ้นในวันที่ 20-22 ตุลาคมที่ไบเทคบางนาค่ะ
ค่ะและในวันนี้นะคะวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิของเรานะคะก็จะเข้ามาแวะเวียนให้ความรู้กับทุกท่านนะคะรวมถึงครั้งถัดไปนะคะก็จะมีวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิทั้งจากในประเทศและต่างประเทศค่ะเข้ามาให้ความรู้กับทุกท่านผ่านทางช่องทางของ Worlddidac Asia ค่ะ
ย้ำกันอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะคะรายละเอียดเกี่ยวกับเวิร์กช็อปออนไลน์ทุกท่านสามารถที่จะคลิกเข้าไปดูได้ที่เว็บไซต์ Worlddidac Asia ค่ะ
ค่ะและในวันนี้นะคะวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิของเราก็พร้อมที่จะมาพบกับทุกท่านแล้วนะคะขอเชิญรับชมรายการของเราและพบกับวิทยากรผู้ทรงคุณวุฒิของเราได้เลยค่ะ
Design thinking is a lot like science because you're putting things together, experimenting, you're trying things out that possibly no one has tried before. We don't solve problems for the people, right? We help them discover the opportunities.
It's about that mindset. It's about you being able to frame, reframe, fall, stand up, carry on, try again, test it, prototype, ask and question. I think that's really that beauty of design thinking. When companies come to us, yes, they have a business problem, but a lot of business problems stems out from human-centered problems about things like preferences, perceptions of certain brands, certain products, certain services, and you can't really discover them until you get into their lives and understand what is the journeys of these people. Why do you not take this drink at this time? Why do you not want to buy that bottle of soft drink at that period? Who's stopping you? What's stopping you? Right? You've got the money, you've got the place, the machine is right in your face, but why aren't you buying?
You don't have to invest a lot of money in solving or making the next breakthrough. You basically need to spend that time and effort understanding your customers' real needs and making that human connection.
I think that's something that we help to discover. Design Thinkers Academy helps us to open up that new perception of needs, wants and desires. Sometimes when mom cooks dinner for us, I like to use this example about mom cooking dinners for us. They spend a lot of effort. And what they do throughout the whole week was to plan for that one meal. It's not about the ingredients, it's not about the cost of the ingredients, it's about how can I make that experience for my son an experience of love.
At the end of the day, you're trying to please your customers, right? And you have different needs and different wants and different expectations. So by being this experimenter, scientist or cook, right? You have the opportunity to be creative and to find different ways of pleasing the different people that you come across, where you don't do things just because you think it's gonna do them better or fit the situation or solve the problem, but because everybody agrees with it.
And I think the inspiration is really about your capability and opening up that opportunities for you to communicate with that next person with your heart. Because we are not communicating with our hearts. No. We have always been communicating with our heads. Yeah. Companies come to us because we truly care, because we connect with them in terms of the emotions. We want to know you and we want to be involved and engage and co-create with you. I think that's really when magic happens.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Today, I'm going to bring to you through the lens of for educators. Let me just share my screen. Thank you. So let me first, before I begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Daryl, and I have 15 years in continuing education and training in Singapore and across Asia. Well, I started off my career being a user of education, eventually becoming a trainer, an assessor, an auditor, eventually a policy maker, and today I am a consultant doing education. Well, I pivoted to design thinking in 2017 when I met up with the partners of Design Thinkers Academy in Netherlands. Today, I am fully immersed in design thinking, and we have set up Design Thinkers Academy Singapore in 2019, Design Thinkers Academy Malaysia in 2019, late 2019, and eventually Design Thinkers Academy Hong Kong, together with our great friends in Hong Kong in 2020. Today, I am a lifelong learner, a researcher, and a designer of experiences. In this situation, learning experiences. Before I begin, let me share with you a bit about Design Thinkers Academy. Yeah? To us, we believe that design thinking is the glue across all disciplines. And we believe that our mission is to empower teams and professionals to adopt human-centered designs and to kickstart bold innovation and to drive positive change. These are our three very foundational design thinking principles. We strongly believe in learning by doing because we don't just believe in just thinking and thinking. We want to do it, bring it out there, try it out, and see whether it works. 2, empathy, which is the very crux of design thinking. Today, we will be talking briefly about empathy, and you will see why empathy is so important in design thinking. Finally, co-creation. This is something we strongly believe in, because if we are always working with the same people, then we will always be getting the same ideas and the same thoughts. Co-creation, we believe, is working with people from diverse backgrounds, from people who may not even have experienced the challenge before. How can they give us new insights to develop new strategies to create something new for the people we care for? Now, before I begin, I would like to share with you 3 ground rules. I would like you to join us. Number 1, please join us in participating in the activities. There will be a series of questions that I'm going to ask, and I will need you to help me go into the platform to put in your answers so that this can be a bit more interactive. Number 2, feel free to ask me questions by putting it into the chat. Yeah? At the end of this session, we will also have a little time for us to converse on some of your questions that you may have in relation to design thinking. And finally, of course, please have fun. Enjoy this session. Now, I would like to start off today's session by asking you to think of this question. What is the first thing you would do when you are faced with a complaint about your teaching? Think about that. What is the first thing you would do when you are faced with a complaint about your teaching? Help me to answer this question by going into the Menti board. So Menti is a platform where we get to collate answers and we will present them to you immediately, live on your screen. Now, if you could get on to use your mobile phones, scan that QR code and give us your answer using one word. What would you do? Let me share that screen with you right now. Okay. So please get onto the Menti screen. What is that one word or what is that thing that you would do if you are faced with a complaint about your teaching? Okay, we're still waiting for people to get onto the Menti screen. Anyone facing any issues about getting onto the Menti screen? Here we are. Thank you very much. Here it comes. Okay, well, we've got some answers here. Well, explain. Well, I believe we'll be explaining about the situation that had happened, answer to the complaint, reflect on the complaint, review the complaint, find out who, listen, react, review, and be calm, for sure. I think that's really important for us to be calm. Thank you very much to the people who had answered the questions. Feel free to continue to, wow, okay, reflection, learn more. Who, why, content. Thank you very much. Well, let me ask you this question. Are we quickly looking for a solution to deal with this complaint? Most of the time, the answer is yes. We want to quickly deal with the complaint so that it does not escalate, so that it does not get too painful for the person who is complaining, and the person doesn't bring it up to our bosses or bringing it up to the rest of our learners and the parents. I think it makes situations very difficult. But my question for you is this: are we too quick on making a decision on a solution? We are facing a society that is quickly changing and is increasingly complex. We are well connected with everyone via social media, via Facebook, like what it is today. We are no longer able to keep our ideas, thoughts, and feelings hidden. At any point when I'm feeling happy, I would put a little like or put up a little story on Facebook. So the question for you is this: how do we, in times like these, deal with all these complexities? That information flows so quickly, emotions changes so quickly. How do we deal with that? Well, today I hope to be able to share with you design thinking. Question is, what is design thinking? Now I want to ask you, how many of you here have heard of design thinking before? How about this? Let's get onto a poll and ask you, using one word again, tell me what design thinking means to you. Using one word, tell us, what does design thinking mean to you? So let's take a look. Let's get onto the Menti board one more time and put in one word that represents design thinking to you. Plan, innovation, understand, emotion, engage. Thank you. What else? Let's see. Wow, sequences, processes, interesting. Learning process, I love that. Learning process, something we're going to learn today. Engage, understand, process of thinking. Thank you very much. Design, planning, idea creation, repeat, yes. Well, one of the biggest words that we see in here is innovation. And true, innovation is part and parcel of this whole design thinking process. The process of continuous development, continuous design, continuous iteration. And of course, coming along with that, what powers it up? Empathy. Very true. Thank you very much, everyone, for sharing with me your thoughts on design thinking. I'm going to share with you what design thinking is. Well, design thinking to us is basically splitting up that problem-solving process into two. One, defining the problem. Two, defining the solutions. You see, many a times when we are faced with a problem, we jump straight into the solution without really understanding it well. That is very serious, and that is a problem. I am going to share with you what design thinking is. But before I do that, let me ask you, do you think this is design thinking? Well, we start off by problem definition. Let us analyze and diagnose a bit of the problem, find out who, what, when, where, why, and how. Let's come up with a design. Let's implement the solution, and then let's evaluate that solution that we have come up with. Is this design thinking? Oh yes, and I forgot, post-its as well. All these post-its on the wall, is that design thinking? No, this is not design thinking. Contrary to a lot of people's belief, design thinking is not a linear process. It is not a straight line of activities. In fact, let me share with you how design thinking feels like. This is how design thinking feels like. It starts off with a whole squiggle of information. Amidst this whole complex environment, we are supposed to find certain things and conceptualize ideas before starting to design. So once again, I bring you back to the double diamond model. This is a mindset that allows us to make use of the other discipline in dealing with the challenge and to finally find the best solution, but not necessarily always the right one, because this is through a human-centered approach. And with complexities like that, sometimes we may have to repeat the process, reiterate, and rethink, re-research. Design thinking is further broken down into 4 different stages. Stage 1, to discover. Really to discover about the problem. What is it about that problem? What is it about that complaint? Before finally defining, this is the problem. And that's where the opportunity is finally framed for us to design the ideas that we can introduce to create the value for the person that we care for. And then we deliver it through a well-designed experience. Now, I want to start off today's session by helping us to look through the lens of stakeholders. You see, design thinking is a human-centered approach, and we always start off with the humans. So I would like to introduce to you the concept of a stakeholder map. That is basically who has a stake in the problem that you are trying to solve, who has a stake in the challenge that you are addressing. A stakeholder map helps us to understand who is relevant to and is impacted by the challenge. It also helps us to build a diversity of experiences and perspectives to learn from. So before I jump in to getting you involved in this stakeholder mapping, I'm just going to create a challenge statement for us to work on together. Starting off, this would be the challenge statement that we will work on together. 1, how might I be able to become a better educator and help our students be motivated to succeed in 2022? As I talk about this challenge, as I bring out this statement, I would like you to think about it and think of 5 people, 5 stakeholders that comes to your mind that may be able to help you in becoming that better educator to help students be motivated to succeed in 2022. Think about that. Who are these 5 people? People, yeah? Not agencies, not societies, but people. Think about that. Now, I would like you to get onto the Menti board and put in 5 different names of people that would help you become a better educator to help your students in 2022. Let's take a look. 5 names. How might I be able to become a better educator and help our students in 2022? Who can we think of? Our students, students' parents, our director of education, principals. Who comes to your mind? Name 5 people and put them onto the screen for us. Let's see. Here we are. Fantastic. Myself, student, mentor, principal, parent. Thank you very much. Who else? Oh, the principal. Mentor. Guardians. Interesting. Guardians. Principal. Looks like principal and guardians are 2 very important people that helps you to become a better educator. I think you all might know that the bigger the word, that means the more people might have voted on that that word itself. It might have been repeated. Oh, parents coming up. Boss. Very true. I guess boss is one of the persons that's important. Oh, alumni as well. Your current students, definitely. Your supervisors, your mentors, your friends, your teachers. Let me ask you this question first. Have you spoken to these people before? If you say that you want to be a better educator, have you spoken to these people before? I think this is a very important question. If you haven't, how then would you become a better educator? So let me bring you back to my deck of slides. Thank you very much. Continue to populate. We'll take a look at it in a short while. Okay, here we are. Let me share back my slides. So in the stakeholder map, we always ask ourselves this question. The question of who has the highest interest and who has the lowest interest. Yeah, interest in this challenge that you are facing of you becoming a better educator. So here are some examples that I think some of us listed there. Yeah, in the Menti board a while ago. The principal potentially has one of the highest interests. Your students' parents has a higher interest. Of course, you becoming a better educator, and then the students will become better students in that sense. Yeah. Textbook authors, maybe they don't have such high interest in you becoming an educator. Maybe. How about who has the most influence? in you becoming an educator? Who comes to your mind? Well, let's use back the 4 same people. This time round, textbook authors, do they have low influence? Maybe. Students, parents definitely may not have too much influence on your education strategies. Principals, probably less than students, because the students are people that we design our education and our education strategies and our delivery methods for. So I believe maybe the students would have the highest level of influence. Now, putting it into an x-axis and a y-axis in a table like that, we see maybe that the textbook authors may have low interest, lower influence, may not be very low. Students' parents may have, well, a bit of a middle influence, but I would imagine high interest. Students, on the other hand, does not have such high interest in you becoming a better educator, but they definitely have a very high influence in you becoming an educator. And of course, the principal would have high interest and high influence. The question here is this: have you missed out anyone? Yeah, a while ago when we did that Menti board, I think we saw quite a number of names. Here are just some other names that you may have not thought of. The school board, neighbors, celebrities. Would they have interest? Probably not. Would they have influence? Maybe so. Arcade gamers, low interest, maybe middle influence. Social media influencers, think of that. Would they be able to play a part in you becoming a better educator? You see, one of the most important things about design thinking is for you to be able to discover how other people that you had never spoken to are able to help you achieve that solution, or to give you new ideas, new insights. You see, individuals often focus on designing solutions for the stakeholder experience. That means to say, when we are trying to address that problem of us becoming a better educator, we only think of educators. How can I become a better educator? Or how can the education system help me to become a better educator? But have you thought about the rest of the people in the society, right? Where you are educating students so that they become useful individuals for the society. So the question is this: have you interacted enough with the society? Number 2, we create better solutions for people when we include those who are typically underrepresented. That means to say, the people that are most neglected out there could potentially be the highest influence on you becoming an educator. Think about that. Number 3, new dimensions, new lenses through the people that we have never spoken to help us to identify who wasn't included before and what we might have left out from their point of view. Have you ever wondered what they can tell you about your problem from their perspective? Who might they be able to connect you with to solve your problem and understand it better? Maybe they could connect you with a celebrity, and suddenly you have just become the best educator in your country. Think about that. How they can also see things with greater simplicity, because we might be clouded in our own lenses with the daily problems we are facing. Maybe they can give you a clearer perspective of how to deal with your challenge. This that I just spoke about is simply the first half of that diamond. In this double diamond, I want to bring this discipline to you. You notice that diamonds have an open and a close. Yeah. So in the first half of the first diamond, the idea here is to be as open as you can, to accept information as it is. A while ago, we talked about the challenge that you face. Yeah. About someone complaining about you and what you would do. Immediately, we are going there to analyze, to solve, to clarify, to justify, to answer, to cope with. The question is this: are we giving due attention to the problem that has just been given to you? If you had spent your time discovering, being open, you might have suddenly discovered new ways of teaching. Maybe someone wants to tell you, hey, there is this new learning strategy that we have heard of, but we are not sure why your school is not using it. But we want to share it with you first. Think of that. And you had missed that opportunity to discover how you might have become a better educator. Just simply jumping to the solution. I want to bring up this topic on empathy. And why is empathy so important? So what is this whole empathy all about? Empathy is helping us to see through the lens of another. You see, we are always clouded by the things that we need to do on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on an annual basis. We have our goals to chase. We have our salaries to pay for, those of you who run education institutions. We may not have that available space for us to look through the lens of the other. The question is this: is that good? Or are we leaving out that very opportunity that tells us how we can be a better version of ourselves? Number two, feeling the emotions of others. When was the last time you had a conversation with a student's parent? For sure, you would have been talking to your students quite often and asking them, how do you feel about this answer? How do you feel about the process? Is it difficult? Is it easy? Sure, I'm quite sure that you do that very often, and I'm very full confidence in this. But when was the last time you asked about the emotions of parents? The emotions of the other people that you mentioned a while ago that would help you to become a better educator? Question is this: is that important? Of course it is important, because this is where it gives you the new opportunities for you to create yourself as a different and a more capable educator, to not just educate the students in your class, but through the students in your class, be able to educate their parents and the people that they work with or they are surrounded by on a daily basis. Isn't that truly then the intent of education? Finally, to walk the journey of the touch points. What does this mean? It simply means you going through that journey of what these individuals go through. When was the last time in your parent-teachers meeting you spoke to the parent and asked the parent, hey, maybe you tell me a bit more about your daily job. What do you do, and when are the opportunities you interact with your child? Have you found out about the work that they go through? About the stresses that they go through? Or is it really, none of my business, it's okay? I am more concerned about the child. The parents, that's their problem. Not really. Don't forget, if the child comes back and imposes the problem on the parents will turn the problem back at you, isn't it? Because they are not exactly trained educators. They will turn the question back at you and say, isn't this supposed to be taught in school? Aren't you the one, and isn't the teachers supposed to teach you? Well, I face that with my daughter at home as well sometimes when she comes in. But I think the exchange and the understanding of the parents also helps you to be able to become a better educator and to perhaps even design a learning, not just in the classroom, but back at home, before you sleep. Before the child sleeps. And when the child wakes up, can you design your learning outside the classroom? That's something for us to think about. Question: how can we define opportunities to help us create value propositions for the people that matter? A while ago, we talked a bit about the stakeholder map, and these are potentially some of the stakeholders that we see. Have you really spent enough time speaking to some of these people and understanding their journey so that they might be able to help you become a better educator? Can you educate students through the canteen food stall holders? Think about that. Can you do that? The answer is maybe. By having conversations with them and maybe even designing multiplication or addition challenges together with the stallholders. Could that be possible? Maybe. Could the neighbors of your students be one of the few stakeholders that can help you to become a better educator? Perhaps they can give you insights. They can give you information about how the children around are actually talking about education and learning, and how they are learning within their own groups, within their own cliques, at the playgrounds, at their homes, or at the supermarkets, wherever it is. Can they give you information? Of course they can. Social media influencers. If you understand social media, it is also a very human-centered approach in trying to make clear messages to people through media. But don't forget, the common denominator here is people. If you are able to understand the journeys of individuals, of the school board, the entrepreneurs, the students' parents, the caretaker, even the caretaker of the school, you might be able to design something that is uniquely new. Maybe even an educational obstacle course within the school. Think about that. How do we do that? That is the question. Well, start off by having this model on your mind. One, you see, we spend a lot of time as educators constantly teaching people what we know. And whenever questions come to us, we spend a lot of time justifying what we already know, which is actually the middle of this whole perception. And when there are situations that you are not clear, of course, we have always been taught to ask what we don't know. But the question is this: how much time have you spent trying to work on what you didn't realize that you didn't know? It's a bit complex, but I want to just talk about this because we don't spend enough time really trying to find out what we didn't realize that we didn't know. And the only way we can do that is through conversations with others. Conversations with people that we don't usually talk to. Which brings us back again to that stakeholder map. And that very question I asked you, how many of you have spoken to the stakeholders that you had listed on the board a while ago? If you hadn't, how then would you be able to discover what you didn't realize that you didn't know? You would be surprised that when you go to the markets or when you go and take a taxi, for example, these people learn a lot more information than we do in school because they learn by having conversations with others that they have never been able to speak to. Lawyers, sports people, stallholders, security guards, potentially even ex-prisoners, maybe even military officials or parents and so on and so forth. Interestingly, these people might be a lot more knowledgeable than we educators might be. Think of that. How then are we going to be a better version of an educator moving forward? And with information moving so quickly over social media, over the internet, how are we going to become an even better version of an educator? That's really something that is going to disrupt the way we are going to teach down the road. When was the last time your student came and told you, "Teacher, this is very outdated. You know, in social media today, we are using TikTok. Today, we are no longer using this. We are, you know," when was the last time your student came to you and said, "Teacher, you are very outdated"? Think of that. The question is it your fault for being outdated? Think of that. Have you spent enough time really making yourself a better educator, a better version of yourself? Or have you been spending too much time justifying what you already know because it is true? That is the part of the second diamond. Because by having conversations with other people, you will end up discovering, oh, I have so much new information. Oh, everyone is facing so many problems. But finally, when you are able to see, this looks like a common problem among parents, school board, amongst educators, policy makers, so on and so forth, that you now have created a new value proposition as an educator. This new value proposition that came from your own conversations and your research, grounded by your education qualification, your education qualifications, you will now become a much more prolific educator to bring new value to your students. And now students will come to you, wow, I didn't know my teacher knew about this. Oh, she does TikTok as well, or he does TikTok as well. Wow, this is very interesting. And that's where your student starts to change and realize that if my teacher is also a researcher, I too want to be that researcher of human beings, and I want to be a better version of myself when I grow up. Think of that. Well, at the end of this double diamond, what really happens then is now finally we have framed one opportunity. And I think this is very important. One of the things that we love to do whenever we are designing a solution is that we are always dealing with too many problems at a time. And therefore, I want to ask you this question. What are we really doing that is not helping? Helping who? Helping yourselves to become better educators, or actually helping yourself to become a better human being. This is what we have been doing. We have been talking, replying, justifying what we already know, which is already the truth. The question is, what should you really be doing? Listening and discovering with your heart. Just a short while ago, I was briefly talking about the need to understand people, to listen with empathy, to discover new insights, and start to design your new education strategies to better cope with that changing environment. So this was what I mentioned a while ago. We are facing a society that is quickly changing and increasingly complex. How then are you going to be a better educator if you are stuck in that box of delivering your education the same way that you did yesterday, last month, last year, last decade? How then are you going to deal with this challenge? I'm going to show to you a video to share with you what we did with a company in Taiwan. Take a look.
Every restaurant wants its customers to be happy, but how can you tell whether this is actually the case? And how can effective improvements and innovations be made to your services? Finding the answers to these questions requires knowing more about your customers. What sort of people are they? What do they expect from the restaurant? Customer journey mapping, seeing things through customers' eyes, allows us to take a good look at a restaurant's services from the outside. Customers are asked to share their experiences in detail as part of our in-depth qualitative research. Cultural probing, one-on-one interviews, observations are all part of the customer journey mapping methodology, providing great insights and data to develop different personas. This student is looking for a comfortable place to eat and work with fellow students. He'd like to place group orders in advance, but finds the mobile website too complicated. This woman is having a tough day at work. She wants the convenience of ordering online and still having a relaxing time eating healthy food. This senior citizen is feeling lonely at home. She wants to go out for a snack and maybe a chat, but finds it confusing to order food at the counter. Finally, this working man is in a busy meeting. He would like to have his lunch delivered during his break and is anxious that it arrives on time. These customer journeys serve as a source of inspirational ideas. Imagine that you get to understand your customers better. You know which points in your service are below customer expectations, and you can develop new or improved ideas together with your customers. Let's say our student places his online group order without any problems. At the restaurant, his group sits at a large table with power socket, games, and free internet. Our working woman can easily make healthy choices thanks to the clear information about nutritional values and ingredients. The atmosphere in the restaurant is relaxing, and after lunch, she can even stay for a free chair massage. Our senior citizen is shown to her seat by the friendly staff, where her order is taken. She soon finds someone to chat with. And our working man is focused on his meeting, sure that his business lunch will be delivered on time. Customer journey mapping enables you to effectively improve your services. and work on a healthy future for your company, a future with happy customers.
Thank you very much. And that was a little project that we did in Taiwan with a restaurant. Well, they were dealing with people they were dealing with a restaurant that didn't have enough people coming. And I think what was important was for them to rethink what was the value provided to these customers that they truly valued the most. So bringing us back in conclusion to today's session, I have just simply covered the first diamond, which is the diamond of discovery and the diamond of definition, this first diamond. And in this first diamond is the most important one that helps us to define new opportunities to become better versions of ourselves. Probably in other episodes or the next time, if you would like to, come to us and we will share with you a bit more about how do you go about designing and delivering that experience. Today, I had the privilege to invite a very good friend of mine, Miss Rosemary Pan, to share with us a bit about how design thinking made a difference in her life. Well, when I first got to know Rosemary, it was a very interesting time where I found that this person really bore that value of lifelong learning. Never say die, never say no, never say never, but always try. Even if it fails, learn from it. This truly is a design thinker and a lifelong learner. Let me now welcome Miss Rosemary onto the screen. Rosemary, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Daryl, for having me here. Yes. Okay, hi everyone. Good morning. I think Daryl painted a very, very high expectation of me in his introduction. Okay, I have about 5 slides that I'd like to share. And in these slides, I'm just sharing with you to what I learned about empathy myself. And it is something that I discovered from young. Yeah. So let me share my slides. Can you all see my slides? Yes. Okay, great. Okay. Indeed, I never stop learning because I always think that, life will be repeated until they are learned. And I always tell myself, regardless of what businesses I run or what I do, I'm just learning from each and every one of them. And then I think that resonates a lot when it comes to the double diamond. If you have seen earlier what Daryl has shared, the double diamond always makes you look into discovering and define. And then after that, you ideate before you actually prototype. I'm always prototyping in my life, since I joined the workforce till today. So I'm a strong believer of lifelong learning because I was a late boomer who never liked school till I started work, and knowing that my path could be limited due to paper qualification. So in that said, I wanted to continue studying after I finished my O-level, but it was really impossible because, I came late into this world and my parents was already like 56. My mom was 40 when she gave birth to me. So by the time I had my O's, my parents was already 56 and 70s. Well, at that age, they are old and it's almost time for them to retire. So I didn't want to stress them, and I need to find my own source to continue in search for my own study. And how I go about it, I provide preparatory classes for overseas children who like to enter into Singapore school system, right? So what I did was I studied privately and got myself a diploma in IT with a UK accredited school in Singapore. And after the international cert, I was employed by the same school who offered me that the course, you know, to help to train new students entering into the Cambridge IT diploma classes. And there again, I wouldn't know how to become a trainer. Neither did the school onboard me to become a trainer. And what I did was I had to learn on my own courses that I have to teach and taught the various modules to the young teens. Initially, I was afraid. Initially, I was so afraid to, you know, that I will fail to become a trainer. But I worked very hard, you know, and every night I learned from my peers, my senior peers who have been there, and learn as I go and teach as I go, right? Fast forward today, I think how many years now? I think over 30 years of working and studying. I'm now with Design Thinkers Academy, and what I do is I empower individuals or organizations through consulting, advising, training, and facilitating workshops. So earlier on, you heard from Daryl about empathy. To me, empathy fuels my connection, okay? And I get very energized. I get very happy at the end of the day when I help someone, right? Or empathize with someone. But what is really empathy? Okay, I realize that it's easier said than done. Okay, at its simplest state, I think awareness of our own feelings and emotions towards others is really very important. Okay, and in that sense, it is much like the link between self and others, or what they are called today, the emotional intelligence. It is a skill that can be developed, okay, and with interpersonal skills, you know, at times it seems very natural to most people. But we have to take in consideration, okay, that people often mix empathy and sympathy. Okay, empathy is a skill that I believe that bring people together and make them feel included, while sympathy simply means that you understand how the person feels. Empathy is about feeling what the other person is feeling and walking through their shoes. Right? So having understand what is empathy, this is when I recall how I realize empathy comes natural in me. Okay, mine was definitely discovered through the School of Hard Knocks. And only when I joined Design Thinkers, it helps me to frame it that this is empathy. So as early as I entered into this world, I suppose I have received lots of love and attention being born to parents who are aged 40 and 54 years of age. My stepsister was already 19 years old. So little did I think, you know, that as young as a baby, the amount of attention, the soothings, the hugs that we get from our family help us to develop our empathy. So I was virtually a child growing up in a very old, aged, giant family, because to me, when you are a child, you look at everybody else, they are like giants. Okay. And when I saw how my parents were so filial to my grandparents, going to their home on a weekly basis, gathering with the rest of my relatives, my cousins, merrily eating and entertaining each other, it built such a warm environment that maybe that gave me that warm personality. Since everyone was older, I observed and actually modeled them in terms of their mannerism, okay, and also in respecting others when they speak. So when you are with the older folks, I am not sure if that is the same for all culture, but for us, when the older people, when they are speaking, we are not allowed to interrupt. We are supposed to sit and listen and wait for our turn. Okay, giving them as much attention by actively listening. And I enjoyed that session because they were all tale telling. I don't know how many of you enjoy listening to, today's world, we call it gossips. But in my mom and I guess my aunties and all, they were tale telling. It was very fun listening because that was when I discovered insight, like what Daryl said earlier on, insights like, oh, is that how my parents met? Oh, is that how things happen? So these insights helped me to understand that, by listening actively, by giving people attention, you are able to get to know a lot of things without interrupting. When you interrupt, you tend to influence the topic with your own biasness, your own judgments of things. So when you listen attentively, quietly on the side and observing how people are talking and acting, you get a lot of insight from it. So I really enjoy that tale-telling times when my parents were doing so, with my aunties and uncle. So later in years, because my older cousins as well as my sister, they got married and they had their children. And from that learning, I was made into a big sister, okay? And there I had to learn to show them love and care for my nieces and nephew. And I suppose that helped me, and I was only 5 years old when I was doing that. So that helped me to have that constant affirmation for empathetic behavior that became very deeply ingrained in me. So I guess empathy is something that, is really an innate quality that you will have, since young, because as young as you're a baby and as soon as you are being carried, you are being hugged, you are being soothed, that already tells you a certain love has been passed to you, that warmness, okay? That empathy has been shown. And that continuous empathy shown onto you is something that you will model and get that behavior going. So I'm not sure how you would react when you're reading books, fiction books. I love fiction books, though they mean nothing. I mean, they are written by people who just fictionally telling you about their dreams, their dream characters and all those, I guess when you read such books and you get yourself entwined with such character, it really helps you to build that emotions in you, I suppose, and you constantly using that emotion to follow through that story. And I also enjoy hearing and as well as watching movies that evokes my emotion. Okay, so why I really think after I learned about design thinking and empathy, I realized that when our feelings are evoked, it's because we take that role of the character. So when I'm watching the movie, I'm actually taking the role of the character, and my emotions actually follow through with the character. And if I'm into a sad movie, I really hate it, if I'm being dragged to watch a sad movie, because I will need a box of tissues. And often, when I come out, people know that I've been crying, my eyes are all red, my nose are all red, right? And so I don't know if that resonates with you, but I'm supposed, I guess but recently I think I saw some things happen in men. I see men coming out from the movie theaters red, with red eyes and nose. So that also put my biasness aside that, I shouldn't stereotype and say only women cry in cinemas. I think men also does. Okay. So if you could resonate with all these stories, you're truly in good hands, Because when I was researching on empathy and such, there was a study done by a neuroeconomist. Okay, it says that when people cry during movies, they tend to be more empathetic. So you are in the check, okay? That means you're empathetic, are in the good health. Because you know how to handle your emotions better. And when you are being faced, okay, with your daily challenges, you tend to be also stronger. Okay, so the circumstances that people always associate crying, relating to losses, to physical pain, and as well as sometimes you also find that people cry when they are also in a very positive environment, such as you see your kid being sent off after their wedding, such as weddings. And then when you start meeting your friends after a long period of time, that kind of reunions, you tend to also cry out of happiness. So that is a very positive thing. Okay. So now back to us being an educator. Earlier on, when Daryl asked what it takes to become a better educator, what do you think it is? You see, being an educator, sorry, excuse me. So being an educator, right, what we need to look out for is really being very empathetic towards children. Look at this saying, if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learned. So earlier on, when we touch on the journey, learning journey for the child, what does it look like when a child goes and sit through your learning or your lessons or in class, right? Are they learning? Are they paying attention? And if they are not, then why? Remember that with this pandemic situation, when we had to move our learning from classroom to online, how did it feel like, watching a screen and not having not being able to actually feel or knowing what you're observing through a normal classroom, right? So this is very important for us to note that for children or trainees, for us, we train adults, we have to really understand how they learn. So children actually learn empathy from watching and experiencing our empathy for them. If you notice that if we empathize with them, these children actually get very attached to us and they develop trust, okay? And these attachments are really key to us, because it is a sign that they are trying to adopt our values and to model our behavior, and therefore also be able to build empathy for others. Okay, so children learn by modeling. So if you look back into your life, and recall how empathy is being built in you, it is really about how you observe, how you model someone, and you really like the way the person cares and love you. Empathy is really beyond just caring. It is really looking at how you can make them feel much better. Okay. I also realized that having empathy also helps in my social relationship. It helps me to pivot, to become more human. Okay. So having empathy helps you to become human because, it is important that you notice how they feel. You notice, their body language. What are they telling you? If they're bored or they are not happy, they're getting upset. So that actually puts up a radar on you to make sure that, you become more human when you're more aware. And this didn't come in very natural for everyone, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. And you could actually learn how to be empathetic by maybe even discovering it through some psychometric personality tools. And there are plenty out there. There their MBTIs, their identity, and in that, it could also reveal how much emotional values you have in yourself, and that could also help you in developing how to be more empathetic. So, so as an adult, when you are sitting through webinars and lessons, I'm sure as educators, we are continuously learning ourselves, right? And we are constantly looking out to upgrade, upskill, and you realize that sitting through a webinar or online lessons throughout a whole day really zap out your energy. If even worse, if the lessons are being taught on a one-way basis. So therefore, having gone through that, it's the same pain that our children or our trainees have to sit through when we are teaching. So having experienced this in our own life, have we actually adjusted the way we are conducting our lessons? I remember that during a lockdown last year, when we started moving our lessons to Zoom, it was really a learning time. It was really a big learning time for me, because when we were given our slides and with no adjustment, I remember doing my first lesson. At the end of the first day, I really felt disappointed. I really felt awkward delivering that lesson. Having to put through my trainees to sit through an 8-hour lessons with me without adjusting anything. Okay, I was really feeling so bad. So that night itself, what I did was I really burnt my midnight oil to make sure that the next day's lesson would be much better, will be delivered in a much better way. So I started searching over the web. I started inquiring with my peers to find out what platforms were they using and how we could explore using those platforms to better engage our trainees. Okay, of course, not knowing much of the pros and cons because time is in the essence. So I started importing, and then what I did was I pilot the next day's class. All in all, the whole iteration took me about 4 pilots before I could settle with confidently delivering a Zoom class with the trainees on a better engagement, right? So what I did was I used at least 3 platforms to deliver 1 lessons. 3 platforms and 2 systems, okay? So what I did was, because one system is for me to make sure that my trainees are constantly engaged, they are constantly energized. So what I did also is also to make sure that I give a 5 minutes break for every 15 minutes block of lessons. The break could come in a way that, sometimes I get them to stand up, to do some stretching with me, or I could also tell them or I do some energized games, just to break that monotony. Okay, so these are things that I had to do to break that monotony of just sitting down and listening to you. The other thing that I also did was, I'm not too sure what if you have done it. I also make sure that I varied the different slides, right? Instead of just having all slides, I also included videos. I included activities that I got them into breakout rooms where they start engaging among themselves before they come out, and they start, to be engaged with the whole big group. Okay, so these are things that I noticed that could also help you to be a better educator, to make sure that you have better engagement. This can also be done in a way that, I also do like a minute or 2 breathing exercises, kind of mindfulness practices, so that keeps them away and bring them back into that system. So it was quite fun gamifying also with quizzes, to do a simple check-in to where, if they have followed you through that system, or the session, and that is something that could make us a better educator, okay, based on how, you could have that better experience with the trainees or with your children, okay? At this point, juncture, do you have any questions for me before I move on to my last slide? I can't see. Okay. Okay, so this is my last slide. Okay, I thought this quote is so apt, Empathy has no script. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I think I shared earlier on, it is really about listening, holding that space. You have to withhold all judgment, and you need to connect with the people you're talking. When we talk about connecting, it is not just about listening, but asking the right question, to be curious to what they are trying to tell you. Sometimes it's the curiosity that helps you to understand them even better, things that they didn't know and you didn't know, the deeper end of that conversation. And of course, communicating that one healing message that you're not alone, okay? We are here for you. So as educators, so it is important for us to understand that empathy is part of us. And it helps us to be more responsible in building a community at school and also everywhere around us. It doesn't take much, okay, to build empathy, but it takes a lot of intentional attention and commitment, okay? So children or teenagers or even adults, they naturally have the capacity for empathy. But that doesn't mean that they developed it on their own, okay? It is really about how you want them to respond and also to notice and listen with care to how we are reacting, because they model how we work. So it is important that when we are teaching young people about empathy, okay, they need to know that, we need to know how to engage them. And studies have shown that with empathy, the classrooms, when you are having lessons, the classroom are more engaged. You will also notice that the students will score higher academically. You also notice that among them as peers, they have better communication skills. There's more, they are lower likelihood to have bullying because they respect one another. They know how to empathize for one another because without judgment. They become less aggressive in the way they behave with one another, and they will create more positive relationships. Yeah. So as educators, we can help to notice, okay, and rule out stereotyping. You see, when you're more observant and you're more attentive in class, as educators, we know that, if the students are what we call it, boxing or grouping themselves, and stereotype the others by calling others names, that is where we can step in. We can, make them realize that, we shouldn't be letting them call names, and accept everyone's differences and respect each other's values. That way, we could also help them to understand how to understand in another person's shoes, okay? And that's helped us to navigate away the social situation ethically and to be fair, okay? We also can help to manage feelings like sadness, anger, frustration among the students, and in that way, we can improve in getting our students to be more positive, okay? So aware of our own shortcoming, we need to also improve, grow, and learn to be a better educator. Okay, in that said, that's the end of my sharing. Thank you. Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you very much, Rosemary, for sharing with us your very deep insights on your journey as a lifelong learner and as a design thinker. So we will now open the floor for questions and answers. So let's see what we have. Let's take a look. How to start design thinking with young students? Well, we this was a very interesting question when we were placed this challenge of starting design thinking. You see, design thinking is a process of empathy. And we asked ourselves that question once. Is empathy innate? Or is empathy something that needs to be learned? And we had lots of conversations about empathy, whether it is something that can be brought into the classroom. And we realized that, yes, this is basically trying to be learned. Learned when they were young, that can be brought into the from learned when they were young, that can be brought into the from when they were very young, can be brought into the from I'm hearing myself. Sorry. Okay. So as I was saying, at the very age when they were born, when we were first carried, that is the first emotion, and all we could probably do is to be able to bring back recognizing these emotions with your student. I think that is where you start that empathetic journey. The thing that we've been doing today is we have been teaching our children to control your feelings. And I think that is one of the most difficult points of our education today. Instead of controlling your feelings, I would reframe that and say, understand that feeling. What is that feeling? And where is that coming from? Some of you might be able to Google. Let me see whether I can do a little share screen with something that we had learned, or at least something that we have. Let me see, yeah? I just want to share this. Here we are. If I could just help me with that, please. Thank you. I mean, okay, so whatever the screen is showing, this is an emotion wheel. And this emotion wheel shows you a lot of emotions that we all as human beings will come across in our lives. My question is, how many of these emotions are being covered in school? Have you really helped the children to discover emotions like anxiety, rejection, humiliation, threaten, frustration, disapprove, disappointed, and things like that? It is in understanding these emotions that we start to be able to empathize and ask our friends that questions of, hey, Rosemary, are you feeling a bit disappointed? Are you feeling a bit skeptical? Are you feeling suspicious? That is when empathy has begun. I think that first question that you are asking, how do we start design thinking with young students? Start by helping them recognize their emotions. What is it that they are really feeling? It is no longer about happy and sad. No, it's no longer just about these two things. It's really about drilling it down. Is it a frustration? Is it an aggression? Is it a humiliation? Or is it just insecurity? They are all very different. Start there. Rosemary, anything to add?
I think it is also important to acknowledge when you see that the children are empathizing with another, acknowledge that positive behavior. That is also important. And as educators, as I mentioned earlier, you need to model the talk to show that you're empathetic to the children as well, or to the people that you're talking to, your peers, to the other teachers. They will model that too.
Thank you, Rosemary. Come, what's the next question that we have? Can I adapt design thinking with young learners, primary student? Well, we just answered that question a while ago, but nonetheless, we recently had a design thinking session done with a primary school in Singapore. And it was basically, again, bringing them through a journey of understanding emotions. Yeah. And I think our question was about environmental sustainability. Yeah. I think one of the best ways of adapting design thinking with young learners in school is to bring out a topic that they care for the most. So be it maybe with a certain, let's say, celebrity, right? Pop culture, a certain culture maybe, or a certain trend that's going on, and help them to build understanding using topics that they are familiar with. But in these topics, get them to express again their emotions. I think that is one of the ways that you can start adapting design thinking. But as for bringing them through the whole journey of design thinking, of course, that is a much more detailed process of discovery, defining, designing, and delivery. I think at the very simplest form, get them to understand about their families at home, their parents at home, the grandparents who cook for them, the journeys that they go through, and the emotions and touch points that they express. Help the students to be able to draw out these journeys and to share them with the class. I think that would be one of the biggest breakthroughs where design thinking and education is brought home and applied at home. Because it is in these discoveries that they can now start to design, my grandma is feeling a bit disappointed. Today, I would like to make something in school. So I would tell my teacher, my grandma is feeling a bit disappointed today because yesterday she couldn't get certain things done. Can I do something about it? Can I build something? I think this immediate application of education becomes really a game-changing for the system itself. Rose, thoughts?
So when this question came out, I really thought about the last primary school that we just did. I think the other thing that, I would encourage is that, one way to adapt design thinking at such young age is to help them to know what is divergent and converging thinking. When do you diverge and when do you converge? So in areas where you get a chance to go into ideation with them, to come up with ideas, it is good to encourage that, the divergent and converging thinking. So meaning that, we don't go jump straight into practicality, go and think about things that, be as well to come up with as much ideas before you actually converge into that thinking mode. So I think just getting them to see a broader perspective and then narrowing it down, that will be another way of integrating design thinking into your students.
Thank you very much, Rose. Well, what's the next question? Anyone has any other questions? Too quick to react. Today is important to take steps and guide that reaction. Who's that? What's that? That looks like Mavis. Is that Mavis? Thank you very much, Mavis. Is there a question below? No, yeah? It's a comment, right? Thank you very much. Now, How different between design thinking and creative thinking? Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you very much for this question. What is the difference between design thinking and creative thinking? It's a good question. I don't have an answer to what is the difference between design thinking and creative thinking. I'm not too sure as well whether creative thinking is a school of thought itself. Maybe it is. Pardon me if I'm not too well versed with creative thinking. But I think what's important about design thinking is that it leverages off human-centered thinking. And I think that is one of the most important things. You know, when I think of creative thinking, I think of things like brainstorming. I think of things like thinking out of the box. I think of things like, but in design thinking, we are not telling you just simply to think out of the box, because that is just one part of the little process of thinking out of the box. More importantly, I think Rose likes to always talk about this. Before you think out of the box, do you even understand what is the box and where is the box and how is the boundaries of the box? Because if you don't, what are you designing? Then you're designing something that you neither know whether you're in the box or out of the box. So to me, I think that could potentially be the difference between design thinking and creative thinking. That's a guess. That's just a guess. Yeah. Thank you. Another question, please. When we find out that students' lack of guts to share idea in the brainstorm process, how to solve this problem? Rose, would you like to share first?
Okay. So in our design thinking process, we also realize that it's not just about students. It is also parallel in adults, between introversion as well as extroversion. So what we did was, in our process, we make sure that we use Post-its. Remember earlier on, Daryl shared about Post-its. So we use Post-its to generate ideas. So we get them to write their own individual ideas before they actually share with the rest collaboratively on the board. And then that's how we get them to share. So one of the way to solve this is give them a time and space for them to write their ideas on a piece of paper, on a Post-its before they start sharing.
Thank you, Rose. I think one of the most important things about brainstorming is this whole concept of fear of humiliation. Yeah. And that's probably the reason why people don't like to share or don't dare to share. I think by giving people roles, to play during this brainstorm process. Let's say, for example, now you are no longer Rosemary, you are now Superman, or you are now Iron Man. If you were Iron Man, tell us, what would Iron Man do in a situation like that? I think when you put a person into a role and you help the person assimilate into that role, this person loses that sense of insecurity, that sense of fear. And that could potentially help you to bring out those ideas that are wild, bring out those ideas that are out of the box. And most importantly is your context, your environment. Have you set up the environment that is safe for creativity, safe for non-humiliation, safe for nonsense? If you have, it will be very natural for these people to be able to blow up 10 ideas, 100 ideas, thousands of ideas. Well, in our sessions that we conduct with people, we always challenge them to come up with at least 100 ideas at the end of a 30-minute session. 100 ideas. And we all do that the whole time. It is because of our constraints of what we think is realistic, what we think is practical, what we think is meaningful, that constrains us in the brainstorm process. So like I mentioned, the double diamond model, remember? Divergence and convergence. When you are in a brainstorm process, you are in the divergent model. Divergent means the more, the merrier. Quantity matters the most. So go for quantity, and that should be your message the whole time. Just go for quantity. Doesn't matter whether it is right, it is wrong, it is wild, it is out of point. Put it in there and give the people the assurance purely on quantity alone. That helps. Thank you very much. So what do we have for the next question? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Singapore education system is very great. Thank you very much for the compliment. Well, I think it is great because it is made up of great educators across the world, like yourselves as well. I think it is not simply because of the system, but it's because everyone develops that mindset of lifelong learning. And I think this is something that's important for us to be able to inculcate in our own students and in our own selves as educators. I am a kindergarten teacher. How to teach children with different readiness in a situation of COVID-19? Wow. Okay. This is a very interesting question. How to teach children on different readiness in the situation? Well, we actually had a class where we spoke a bit about the journey of a journey of a COVID-19 patient, a parent who had suffered from COVID-19. How do we deal with that whole journey of contracting, testing positive, sent home, taking medicine, recuperating and recovering, and eventually still living in that fear? I think if you are going to teach about readiness in the situation of COVID-19, I would imagine helping to break this down into that stages of discovering of that contracting of COVID-19 first. I mean, if we are talking about COVID-19 happening in a family, yeah, then I would probably help to put this out into the stages of contracting COVID-19, or at least suspicion first. We start off with suspicion of COVID-19, testing, contraction, so that positive contraction of COVID-19, that recovery, and that I think that whole journey of reinstating that confidence. Maybe in these stages of these 5 stages, we can start to define what are some of the emotions that goes on during that suspicion. Because during that suspicion, there'll be a lot of fear. What if I pass to my children? What if I lose my job? What if I am contagious? Or what if I die? Yeah. So all these, if you are able to define, I think that would help the children to be able to go and say, go back home, tell mommy, no matter what happens, I'm always there for you. And I know that you are feeling worried and you are feeling scared, but I believe you won't die. I believe you are going to be very strong. I think these little small messages gives great confidence to the parents back at home. I hope that helps. Next question. Rose, do you have anything to say on what is your advice to... Oh, this is the last question. Thank you very much. Well, what is your advice to design the class during COVID-19? Whoops. What is your advice to design the class during COVID-19? Oh, I love this. Okay, before we start this, we want to share with you, actually last year when COVID-19 struck in Singapore, we were asking ourselves, do we want to immediately convert all our classes to e-learning, to online classrooms? But we made a very conscious decision. Are we going to solve this problem immediately with the solution that everyone is doing? The answer is no. We decided that we do not want to do that. And I think that was where we said, let's spend a bit of time discovering. And I think with that whole intent and that discipline of the first diamond, remember we talked about the double diamond, that intention to discover, we had realized that we learned a lot more. Today, we have created a space for over 20 to 30 people across the world to share their emotions, to share their journeys, to share their touch points, and to share their lives. Some of these people have also started to create work with each other. Beyond that, we have also started to talk and run, a video podcast and many new conversations with people in order simply to understand what COVID-19 really means to us in Design Thinkers Academy. Because when you find out about that answer, you realize that there are a lot more opportunities to pivot, opportunities to create a new version of ourselves as educators or as an education institution. Then you finally decide, what do you want to do? So likewise, in your context, what should you do during COVID-19? I would say spend some time really discovering with the different people and the different aspects of COVID-19. What does that mean for you? And where are the new opportunities that you as an educator, you as an education institution can grow and create new changes for the people or for that society that you're working with? That is what I call a true design thinking process in COVID-19. And it is not potentially going to happen in the classroom. I don't think so. Rosemary? No? Okay. As a supervisor, how to supervise teacher about design thinking? Well, this is a very, very real and very good question. Thank you very much for this question. Well, I think as a supervisor or as a design thinker, what's most important first is to really understand and embrace the values of design thinking. Like I said, design thinking is a discipline. It is not really a step-by-step process. It is a discipline. You know, one of the funniest things, and you notice that yourself as well. You see, in the very first question that I asked you in the start of this workshop is, what was the first thing you would do when you receive a complaint? And the answer is, I would want to solve it as soon as possible. You see, the whole principle of design thinking is telling you, hold on, hold your horses. Don't go start solving problems if you don't even understand it well. So start by having to inculcate the culture of the double diamond. Teach them and show them the different tools that they might be able to use. Tools as in tools like the journey, the stakeholder map, like I spoke to you about, as well as bits of the journey maps and things like that. Help them to be able to empathize. And finally, before they come to you, I would say, ask that supervisor, do you have at least 10 solutions for me to choose from? Then make a decision which one is the right one. I think that helps to develop that discipline, that we are too hasty in trying to solve problems the whole time and really undermining the value of the problem and the value of the learning that we can get out of these opportunities that we have been blessed with. Don't look at problems as problems. Look at problems as an opportunity, because these problems may no longer happen to anyone else except you. And I think that brings us to the very last question of today. I'm not sure if there's any more. Feel free to put them up onto the chat. Otherwise, I would like to get us on to one last little activity. Give me a second. I will just put it up onto the screen. I'm going to share screen now, and I would like you all now to get onto the Menti board. Help me with the Menti board. Scan and use one word that describes your experience today. One word that describes your experience today. Let me go over to the board. There we are. Okay, come. Give us one word that describes your experience. Thank you very much for joining us today. Yeah. New, exciting. Thank you very much. Inspiration. Thank you very much. Empathy. Thank you. Superb. Encouraged. Empathy, exciting, inspiration. Thank you very much. Just one word. Exciting. Fresh. Yes. That should always be the feeling of design thinking. Design thinking should always give you that freshness. Every time you get out there, you speak to people, you will always feel refreshed. Oh, new insights, new perspectives. New. Yes. It's always about new. Inspiration. Thank you very much. Let me just check whether I see thinking, I see, well, for those that are on Facebook, please go ahead and go into the Menti board and use that code. And please put in your word into the Menti board so that we might be able to just get a little feedback on today's session. Inspiration seems to be coming up quite a bit. Challenging, yes. Interestingly, I think there is one more question from Damien Lim that I just see from the Facebook page. Let me, as you continue to put in your one word, please do continue to put in that one word. Come, let's try and address that question. I'm just going to challenge ourselves, Rosemary. Let me bring us back to that one word. Thank you very much. Let's take a look. Would you say that a change in the paradigm of change of thinking from a problem mindset to see a problem as an opportunity is courage? Well, Rosemary, you want to try to answer first?
Let me see, it's an interesting problem. Okay, so when we are empowering our people with design thinking, we are hoping for that transformational mindset change, right? And to see that, a problem mindset to an opportunity, we always discover opportunity through our learning journey, our journey mapping. So when you say it's courage, I wouldn't say it's a courage, but I would say that, this opportunity gives rise to us being very proactively tackling problem rather than, being reactive to solving something that might come back again. So it is not about courage. It is about insights that produces that opportunity that allows us to bring this up to the various stakeholder to really point out to them that, you know, this is what we discover, and this gives rise to opportunity for us to tackle. So it is not about the courage, but data and the process allows us to, you know, present it to the stakeholder, and that will also, I don't know if that is deemed as courage, but that deems as, you know, an opportunity for us to present to the stakeholder.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Well, I would imagine this whole journey. Hold on. Can you just bring back the question again? Thank you very much. Well, it is to me, I look at it as not just courage, I look at it as a discipline. This whole paradigm of change is all about you making the choices to collect and to decide. To collect and to decide. We are always too quick to decide. We are always deciding, okay, a problem comes, decide. Solve it this way, done. No, collect information, collect new insights, understand, empathize, discover, and finally, let's define the problem. And then let's once again collect information. How can we solve the problem, or how can we really maximize this opportunity? And let's decide right now. This is how we are going to create that new experience, that new value proposition. Yes, it is a discipline of courage, but I must also remind you that not all solutions will always work, because sometimes the research may not have been done well enough. The choice may not have been done well enough, or there could be external changes that we have not really taken into consideration. But that is human. Learn from it. Try it one more time. Reiterate. That is what design thinking is about. Learning by doing, not thinking and thinking and thinking. Do it. Try it. Didn't work. Learn. Try again. I hope that answers your question, Damien. Well, with that brings us, I believe, to the very end of today's session. Now, those of you who are still keen to contact us, join us on our Facebook page, join us at all our various platforms on LinkedIn and so on. On behalf of Design Thinkers Academy and on behalf of Rosemary and myself, we would like to thank the organizers, Worlddidac, for inviting us to share with you on design thinking. That is our passion, and we hope that all of us can be better human-centered transformers in your own workplaces. Rosemary?
Thank you, everyone, for for spending time with us this morning, on a Saturday morning, listening to our sharing, and thank you for having us on Worlddidac. Thank you.